What's up, everyone? Carlos Almeida here again, and today we have for the first time ever two guests at the same episode. You simply cannot miss that. Nathan from India and Dave from UK. They bring us an awesome approach about many topics like strength and conditioning training, online training, these crazy COVID and lockdown times, also about BJJ plus self-defense, and of course coffee. Stay tuned, subscribe, and leave a comment.
This episode of Jiu-Jitsu Café Podcast is brought to you by BJJ Connections, connecting BJJ practitioners and athletes all over the world, including lifestyle, competitions, and much more. Follow BJJ Connections on social media for their amazing content. They are in Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And this episode of Jiu-Jitsu Café Podcast is also brought to you by Cervical Kimonos. Action is everything. The famous gi brand in the UAE and Middle East. Also, they are all over Europe and shipping worldwide. Cervical Kimonos. Action is everything.
Hi, everyone. We are here again with the Jiu-Jitsu Café Podcast. Today is a special episode with these two amazing guys. Nathan from Bangalore, India, and Dave from UK. How are you doing, guys?
Very well. Thank you, Carlos. Very well. Very well. Thank you for putting this on, man.
Pleasure being here. Really looking forward to this talk right now. So really good to meet you finally, Professor.
Thank you, guys.
Likewise,
Thank you.
Professor Us. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Guys, I have the first question. Of course, we have a lot of things to talking about today, but I have this first question to all my guests here. To the people who follow us on social media, on YouTube, podcast platforms, to know our guests better. Then I usually ask them the origins, where and when they born and raised, how they start to practice some sports. Nathan, can you start with this? And then Dave, you can give us your considerations, please.
Absolutely, no problem.
Sure. So I have been into sports for pretty much my entire life, my school, my college, throughout it. So what had happened was like most kids in India, I used to play cricket and I was pretty good at it. But then, but then I actually kind of broke my shoulder and just couldn't play anymore. So a few years I was actually out of any sport post college, and then after maybe 3-4 years after my college finished, I got into strength and conditioning. So I was a strength and conditioning coach for a few years, and then I I just randomly ran into a mixed martial arts gym ad, which was my first professor Rama Reddy. So he's a brown belt right now. So his school he had just started off. So I met him, and then actually I wanted to learn kickboxing, but then I just got so much into jiu-jitsu and wrestling that that was what I dedicated my life to post that. So this was about in 2011, I think, when I started, 2011, somewhere in the middle of 2011. And then one thing happened that my coach Rama Reddy had to leave the academy. He had to move out. So I was actually stuck in a really bad position because I really wanted to continue this sport, but then I was just a white belt, with maybe around 8 months of training under me. So I had absolutely no idea what to do because I didn't want to stop the training and there was no one else doing jiu-jitsu in my city at that time. So I just decided that whatever happens, I have to start an academy just so that I can keep training. And I started the academy. It was called Indian Combat Sports Academy, and started training. And my first goal was to develop a few guys around me so that I have someone to train with. Because at that time, it wasn't for me that I should train, I should keep training, I should keep getting better. But my first thing was I'll develop a good team so that I can keep developing. So that happened for a few years, and then my first trip to Thailand was when I actually first time I trained under a black belt, Professor Olavo in Thailand in Phuket Topi. So I was there for about 5 months, and that was an amazing journey because that was the first time I was seeing actual fighting, which was not my own fighting, and training with someone else, with experienced MMA guys, with experienced wrestlers, with black belt, Jiu-Jitsu black belt. So that was an amazing experience for me. And then in 2015 is when I competed in Bangkok Open, and I won that, and I got promoted over there to blue belt. And post that, I also fought and won in Asia Pacific Championship in Philippines. And yeah, post that, of course, I've again back to my academy, and again, I've not had anyone to guide me in jiu-jitsu as such. So trying to just figure out how to go about it for the last 5, 6 years. And right now, yeah, just a very messed up situation with COVID and Corona going on. And I had just started an academy about a year back. So I actually celebrated the first year anniversary of that academy during the COVID time. So basically, my 1 year got over and there was no students around. So, so yeah, that's part of my history. So strength and conditioning was my first thing, followed by jiu-jitsu. Right now, my focus is all on jiu-jitsu and mixed martial arts because that's something that feels a little bit more challenging to me than strength and conditioning. Plus, the sport culture in India is quite different. So, we don't have a lot of people looking for strength and conditioning, including sports people, including athletes. So they are kind of still kind of satisfied with just regular bodybuilding routines, and they don't have that kind of mindset that each sport should have a particular strength and conditioning routine. They are just doing some random stuff. So for me, jiu-jitsu became a lot more jiu-jitsu and MMA that we have athletes who are very dedicated to it. We have uh, students who are coming in who are very dedicated to it. So it's more fruitful for me as a coach. So yeah, that was what my journey is.
Well, it's a colourful journey, man.
Thanks a lot, Dave.
Well, I mean, mine, to be honest, mine didn't start with jiu-jitsu or anything like that. Mine started with taekwondo years and years and years ago, man. And, that was my background for many years was taekwondo and boxing. Because where I grew up, that's kind of all there was. There was karate schools. There wasn't MMA when I was around. I mean, I'm 47 now. So when I was growing up, it was either kind of traditional karate, judo, boxing, or taekwondo. So for me, it was taekwondo because I love the fancy kicks and the flair of it all, and the boxing. But to be honest with you, taekwondo was just that. It was just fancy kicks and nothing substantial, nothing that I thought. I mean, growing up where I grew up as well, you had to know how to fight. So, fancy kicks were good sometimes, but when it got down to the nitty gritty, you had to know, how to throw your hand. So I focused more time on my boxing, spent a lot more time on boxing because that was more relevant at the time, with what was going on, when we was growing up, it was, you basically had to know how to throw your hand. So like I say, I spent a lot of time on that. And then moving on from boxing, I kind of got bored with being punched around all the time. And again, wanted to find something else. So I delved into a couple of other bits. I found Aikido. I tried that for a week and left it because I just thought I'm going to have to do this for 900 years to even be able to be effective at anything. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not knocking it. All dues to people that do it, and the masters out there. I'm not knocking you, but yeah, I had to move on from that. And then I found Krav Maga, which I studied for 14 years, and I studied basically with the top guys, with A.L. Yanilov. He passed me for my, when I passed my, we call it expert level, but it's an equivalent of a black belt. So I was passed by him. And then I went through a lot of academies. I spent a lot of time in Poland with a lot of guys out there in Łódź. And then I kind of found jiu-jitsu after the Krav Maga, because again, Krav Maga, there's going to be a lot of people that hate me for saying this, but it is just a defensive system. It's not a fighting system. They teach you how to punch, they teach you how to kick. I mean, I had my own academy. I ran my own academy for 3 years. We had loads of students coming on a weekly basis. But for me, it wasn't, there was no testing. we wasn't tested enough. The students weren't tested enough. And when students were put in a tested situation, they crumbled. You know, people were like, oh, what's happening? So, you know, I would teach them all of the fancy moves and things that look really fantastic and flamboyant. But as soon as you put that into test, shit crumbled, man. Do you know what I mean? So I kind of started losing a lot of heart with it. You know, they teach you a lot of, I stopped doing knife defenses in the classroom because, you know, I was teaching people a full sense of security. People thought they could defend against a knife. And in reality, if you've ever seen a real knife attack, it's bullshit. You're very lucky. Sorry for the swearing. You're very lucky if you're going to defend against somebody really trying to get you with a knife. So I kind of moved away from the pretend side of things and just wanted to show people, look, a real street fight is going to start with these. If you can't use these, then, you know, where are we going with it, type of thing. So anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. So I kind of moved on from Krav Maga, shut my school down morally because I thought, you know, I'm teaching people something and giving people such a false sense of security. And there was a few incidents where people went out and got into fights and actually really got hurt. And then came back to me and said, well, actually, you're teaching me something that's not working. And when I come away and thought about it, I thought, you know what? It's true. So then I started delving into Jiu-Jitsu with Professor Kev Capel under Roger Gracie. And I trained with them guys for many years. I'm still only white belt 2 tag, but I've been doing it for longer. So I should possibly be a bit higher up the rankings. But for me, it wasn't about the belt. It was about, wow, I sit on that mat and I get tested every single week, you know? And then I delved into the MMA because my sons are doing the MMA. My sons are doing the, you know, the sport fighting, the cage fighting. And kind of that is me now, to be honest. I'm hard in the jiu-jitsu. I'm doing a lot of mace training, as you can see, Nathan. That's really good for my overall conditioning. You know, it's fantastic. My strength has just gone through the roof for it, you know. It's unbelievable. But so, yeah, that's kind of my background, guys, where I'm at now. Very disheartened. And this is why I want to talk about self-defense systems as such, you know. We could lead on to that nicely.
Right. Guys, even if you said, I want to change my martial art, I want to change my sports, that's an amazing journey, right? Because you have a lot of motor skills at this way, and you can apply even better the next sport you practice, right? Here, I'm a bachelor in PE, and I had a master's degree on physiologic and biomechanical systems, right? I guess the best athletes is not the best motor skilled guys. It's not a rule, right? Why? Because sometimes the athletes, an example, football here, because it's the sport of of the country, the guys just play football all their lives, like start at 5, 6, 7 years old, and then till the 30s, they just practice football, just running and kick the ball. If they want to do something to just survive, like I don't know, climb the tree, in extreme example, maybe they cannot do it. So
Yeah.
I'm personally, I defend this point of view, especially when you are a kid and teenager. But of course, if you are adult and have this opportunity, do this. Practice whatever you want, swimming, even football, some striking sports, of course, BJJ. Then you can choose what is the better for you, right? Because when you have all these opportunities, you can find the sport to suit you better. But for me, swimming and fighting, in my case, BJJ, it's a must because it's kind of a survival thing, right?
Mm. Yeah,
I don't.
absolutely.
Yeah, I think it was GST who said, right, that kids, first thing kids should learn is gymnastics so that they develop the perfect motor skills, and after that they can come into other sports like jiu-jitsu or karate or boxing. So yeah, makes perfect sense. I think especially in terms of self-defense, again, I think we'll cover that later. But one thing is not enough, and I guess that's the beauty of MMA, right? Like you can be a specialist, but that's not going to be enough in the end, especially
Yeah,
when you
absolutely.
fight the top guys. So you
Mm.
need to know everything. You need to know everything. You might have a specialty, but knowing everything is always the best.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely. You know, to be well rounded in all kinds, all kinds. I mean, that's to be honest. I mean, that was one of the first things I taught my kids, or put my kids into, was put my kids into judo, because they learn how to fall, they learn how to roll, they learn how to, you know, the first thing they're going to do when they go into school is going to be pushed over or roll over or tumble. You know, so I thought, let's give them a head start. So I got them into judo when they was like 4 or 5 years old. You know, and it done them well. It done it. You know, it served them well. It served them really well.
Yeah. And guys, now if you don't mind, I want to turn a little bit our conversation here to strength and conditioning. First of all, because it's my interesting point, because
Yeah.
as I said in off to Nathan, I'm a little bit lazy on that COVID times over here. And I know you guys are specialists on this field. So please, Nathan already introduced a bit on his first thoughts. Many people just try to training like a bodybuilder, but they want to practice track and field. That's not gonna work. So let's talk about this, please.
So for me, I mean, what I've been finding recently, like the strength and conditioning, is the unconventional training. So the mace training, the hammers, the kettlebells. It's unbelievable for internal strength, and for BJJ and all of the sports that I'm practicing right now. It's all relevant. Every single bit of training. Like when I've done my strength and conditioning training in the past, I've almost put myself through routines and thought, Jesus, I've done all of that. Is that really going to do anything for me? Is that really relevant? You know, I've just sweated my ass off for, 45, nearly an hour's worth here. And to be honest, that's not going to benefit me in my actual training. As soon as I started doing what I'm doing now, so swinging the mace around, swinging the hammers around, the kettlebells, it's all relevant to my training because it's all to do with grip strength. It's all to do with core stability. It's all to do with, hip rotation, my shoulder movement. So all of these movements, all of these ones that I'm doing relate exactly to the sports that I'm doing. So for me, I mean, I'm even going to start training again. I'm a boxing coach on Mondays and Wednesdays, and now we're back. I'm going to start applying this unconventional training to the boxers there, because my punching power is, over the COVID period, is gone through the roof. It really has. It's just, techniques and the way I'm doing it just work hand in hand for what I'm training.
Yeah, I think my views are also quite similar with regard to that. One thing is there that a lot of these equipments are quite old, like something like the mace, for example, which is a lot of people are using that. Not so much in India, but at least in Europe and
But in India, they use the
America.
Garda a lot, though, right?
Exactly, that's
The
what I was
Garda in
coming to.
India is huge, man.
It was, but trust me, you can't even buy it. You have to get it fabricated. For example, the ones you get it is just horribly shaped. It doesn't have enough of a grip. Like I had a couple of gadas which I had to get it fabricated, but then that's the thing. Those are that's such a traditional. It is in gadas in English is called Indian clubs, right?
Yeah.
So it is such a traditional thing in India, but it's lost because of the physical culture now.
Right.
You know, isolation exercises are, to be honest, easier to do. Like if you ask someone to just bench press or do some chest flies or something like that, it is much easier. A lot more people can do that rather than struggling with a mace or a kettlebell, because it is a lot more technical. And that's
Yeah,
where,
yeah.
a lot of people, especially at least in my country, I can speak for that, they kind of lose the patience to learn the technique. I see a lot of people using kettlebells not for the purpose it was built for, like cleans and snatches
Yeah.
or Turkish get-ups and all that, but they use kettlebells as dumbbells basically. They'll be doing bicep curls with that. They'll be doing bent over rows with that. So that physical culture itself is quite different. In terms of unconventional equipment, yes, it does definitely work. One thing I always believe is that you should have a strength base, first of all. Do a lot of compound exercises. So for my athletes who I was training, first thing I
Yeah.
used to always make sure is get a good
Good
strength base.
base. Yeah,
Exactly. So,
absolutely, man.
just basics like squats, deadlifts, shoulder press, those kind of things.
You have to have
Post
the
that,
base to build
yeah,
on.
exactly. So that was always my way of training, get a good base strength, and post which, the more experience they get, more specific it gets.
Yeah,
After
yeah,
that, it
absolutely.
gets into sports specific, or else if they are looking for a lifestyle specific, so those kind of get divided after that.
But then you'd start going into your macro and micro cycles if you want to start building them sort of things, you know.
Exactly.
Um, so yeah, definitely. But then you get, like you say, it's more sport specific then, isn't it? So if I'm
Exactly.
training my boxers, the exercises, that I'm going to be putting together are going to be, a lot more dynamic and geared toward boxing.
Definitely. I mean, in the end, you don't want a boxer to have, those big 16, 17, 18-inch arms and all, right? So you
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
want them like that. So yeah, some things work for certain sports, some things don't work for it. And it is a coach's responsibility to, figure out what works for which athlete, for which sport. But then it is also a little bit of responsibility of the athlete to be much well educated and more open towards learning. So that is one beautiful thing about Jiu-Jitsu, what I found out and what really attracted me to it, that people who are training Jiu-Jitsu are a little bit more open-minded, not a little bit, actually a lot more open-minded compared to a lot of other sports.
Mm.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want to name those institutes, but when I was doing strength and conditioning, I was given the charge of a very big football club in India. And their training was absolutely horrible. They were just giving me the job of, they were paying someone sitting in Sweden or somewhere who was giving a workout program, and I just had to make the athletes, all the footballers, do that. And that workout program was basically just pure bodybuilding. So my thing was that why will a footballer do a bodybuilding program first of all? That just doesn't make sense.
Of
You don't
course,
want
man.
them
It's
to be
just
big and bulky. So,
yeah, of course.
and
Like you
that is
say,
one of the.
sports specific, man.
It is, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, guys, just add one thing about isolation exercise. Of course, for some sports or some kind of recovery, that's important, but that's absolutely sucks, right? That's absolutely sucks. It's fucking boring because when I want to do, okay, I want to, an example, recover my shoulder. Okay, I want to do specific things to recover that. Man, I about to kill myself. It's like fishing with a pencil, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
That's so hard, so boring.
But this is why these unconventional methods of training are so good, especially the mace training, right? I had a problem with my shoulder. I got an injury doing jiu-jitsu with my shoulder, with my left shoulder. And it plagued me for years, man. And as soon as I started doing these exercises with the mace and it started freeing up my shoulder, the mobility in my shoulder, I mean, I don't have a problem with it anymore, So like they say, prevention's better than the cure. And I think like all of these exercises are the prevention to that, because of what we're doing and the positions we're in and how dynamic our sport is. We need that. We need that security, that strength.
Yeah. Also, if you have good joints, I don't know if this term is it's okay. My English is not good like yours,
No.
guys. Uh, we have more confident to apply the techniques, right? To try
Yes.
something, to do
Mm.
something new or something different, or something with this guy in specific. I want to do this, I want to do that. It's a kind of our mindset change as well, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
definitely. I think also like similar point, like I have knee injuries, like I have a MCL and meniscus tear in both my knees due to wrestling, actually, not due to jiu-jitsu. But uh, so one thing is there that no sport has a a uniform movement pattern. So every sport has a very mixed pattern of movement. So when you do unconventional exercises like kettlebells, like mace, like even battle ropes and these kind of movements, they help you prepare much better for sport movement, because you're not just moving in one direction, you're not just standing in one spot and doing it, you're using all the mobility that you do have.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So, guys, and how these COVID times are impacting you in India and in Dave? Are you living in London?
No, see, I'm just outside of London. I'm in Buckinghamshire, so it's
Right.
just outside of London. See, London was hit. Well, we've all been hit really hard, but what I'm saying is London was in a complete lockdown, complete isolation. We was in isolation and lockdown, but it was nothing like actual city of London. That was, you know, horribly locked down. You couldn't even go out of your house, drive down the road without being stopped by the police. I mean, where I live, you could at least go to the shops or go for a drive, and you weren't so bad. But in London, yeah, it was like apocalyptic scene, man.
Yeah, guys, how you dealing with these COVID times about your students, about physical activities in your countries? Can you give us your thoughts, please?
Nice.
So for me, it's been like really bad because in terms of running a gym and a business, it's been a complete, uh, it's just been a disaster. So this is like my fifth month of my gym being closed. So in terms of finance and business, it's just been a disaster. I do have a lot of students who are coming online for training with me, but then I don't really like training combat sports online because if there's no contact, I just don't believe in it. I don't want to
Absolutely,
teach
man.
them boxing in the air or jujitsu. I have taught them solo drills, but then whether jujitsu or boxing or wrestling, we just cannot do it without a training partner, without actual contact. So it's been a lot of strength and conditioning for me, for my students. And again, most students don't have a gym setup, so no kettlebells, no barbells. Uh, a few of them have dumbbells, but it's been a lot of calisthenic training for me, for my
Yeah.
students. Uh, I tried getting over a few students, to my house just to train. I put in some mats, but then again, it's a little tricky situation. So those are uh, like my city, Bangalore, is still quite badly affected by COVID, and the numbers are just going up crazy. So there's a lot of fear in the students itself of coming out.
Yeah,
So
I mean, to be honest, it's been the same here. I mean, my students, in terms of my students, I'm a youth worker. So my full-time work, I've been full-time flat out. So I'm dealing with ex-gang members and kids that are, you know, completely off of the scale. So my job, I haven't stopped working. But in terms of the student boxing gym that I go to and the gyms themselves, nothing. It's been complete lockdown. Nobody's been allowed to train. A couple of the guys have kind of got together from time to time in a jiu-jitsu hall, but that's just been kind of so yeah, in terms of that, the gyms have been locked down. The guys have been linking up from time to time, but for me, I've not been wanting to. I've trained with my sons as well. My sons, they all do jiu-jitsu, they all do the MMA, so I'm quite thankful to have three sons that are quite willing to train. So at the beginning of COVID, we went and bought some mats and we just kicked shit out of each other in the garden for hours every day. It was beautiful.
I'm so jealous right now
Oh, yeah, listen.
because
Same
I
here,
have
same
mats
here.
but don't have partners.
Yeah.
So guys, as we talking, the specific training, strength and conditioning training, I mean, it's must for any sports. But in about our area, about our field on self-defense, because I saw many guys practicing self-defense online. Does not make sense in my mind, right? Let me know what you think about it. I know Nathan said about striking online, but Dave, what you
Yeah.
think if you talk with someone and he said to you, okay, I start self-defense online now on quarantine?
Yeah, well, you haven't started self-defense, I would say. What you've started is a puppet show or a clown show, because you can't do self-defense online, right? You can practice or show techniques, yeah. Like you were saying, Nathan, you could show pad drills or you could show drilling drills with the jiu-jitsu, but you cannot practice that online, okay? Because you need the physical contact. You need to be able to. You need, like yourself, professor, I need you to say to me, no, David, that's not actually right. Stop for a second and do it like this. All right, you can kind of do that online, but it's just not the same. So you're not doing self-defense. Like with these Krav Maga classes that you see online, okay, and these self-defense classes that you see online, how can you have a self-defense class if you never test it? So how can you test the self-defense class online? Okay, you can't. You cannot test the self-defense class. Now, my whole issue, guys, with this whole self-defense thing, right? People say self-defense, right? So my whole thing with the self-defense is, how can I teach somebody a self-defense class or technique if I do not teach them how to fight first? Now, understand the concept. So if I teach you the best self-defense in the world and you defend against, chokes and defend against this, that, and everything else, but if you don't know how to fight, how can you then continue to defend yourself? Do you ever see an MMA boxer or MMA fighter defending? Nathan, you'll know this because you've been in the battlefield yourself. You know. Have you ever just defended?
No, that's not possible.
When you train, do you? It's not possible, right? So
It's not possible.
my whole thing is, when I was doing my Krav Maga classes, when I was going to, and again, look, guys, anyone that listens to this, I am not knocking any traditional martial arts. I'm not knocking anyone that wants to go and practice a martial art, but it is not a self-defense. You are not doing self-defense unless you learn how to fight. It is as simple and as plain as that. You will not see MMA fighters just defending. You will not see jiu-jitsu players just defending. It will defend, attack. All right, at white belt, of course, you're defending. That's all you can do. It's just, a barrage of shit coming at you, and you just have to deal with it. But, this is my thing with the Krav Maga. I've done it for 14 years, right? And like I said to you earlier on in the podcast, I stopped teaching people out of a moral feeling for a moral feeling itself, thinking, well, actually, you know what? If the shit hit the fan, you lot ain't going to be able to do anything. Nothing at all. They can do all the fancies. And it was proof, right? We had guys come over from Israel, some of the top guys, right, in Krav Maga. Don't get me wrong, some of them are real beasts. But some of them, you put the gloves on them and let's just have a real spar. All of that Krav Maga technique and all of that fancy shit they're doing goes straight out of the window. The minute you get a punch in the face, that really tells you where you're at. And that's why jiu-jitsu for me was the ultimate. Boxing is the ultimate. MMA is the ultimate. Because like a friend said to me once, right, the mat never lies. It never lies. The minute you get on there, you will know who you are. We've had the biggest mouth guys come in there, brawn and tough. And my professor will put them with the smallest guy just to humble them. I don't know what your views on that is, guys, but I've had a strong thing about this for a long time. And anyone I speak to can't really understand the concept. They're like, well, you don't really know what you're talking about. And I'm like, well, I do, because I've practiced my whole life. I've practiced Krav Maga for 14 years. I should know a little something. And I never, it was my way in the end. I had to teach them how to fight. You couldn't come in my class and do a Krav Maga class unless you'd done a 7-week striking program before we started any techniques at all.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you can know the few concepts online, like, okay, I should put my hands up. That's a simple one. That's a foundation of self-defense or anything, right? I want to do my foot like this, but you don't gonna learn the self-defense if you don't practice. As you said, Dave, you can know the concepts, but these kind of concepts, of course, we are in weird times. It's good at least for your mental health to practice something. But don't tell us who has really experience on martial arts or in fighting, you start to do self-defense online, please. Nathan, let us know your thoughts, please.
So, as human beings, we have the number one reflex in terms of self-defense we have to develop is the fight or flight. Fight or flight is a very, very important thing.
It's controlled by the amygdala. That's what
exactly
controls the fight or flight.
And it is a very trainable, trait. So but then, unless you actually have been in situations, either you're not going to train it. You might have seen, hundreds of Bruce Lee movies and every Kung Fu movie or something, but still, it doesn't mean that you can use those techniques, right? Because in the end, that Mike Tyson, quote that, what is it about getting punched? So, in the end, when you get punched, when you get choked, when you get taken down, the situation is very, very different. That's a real situation.
Yeah.
You're not going to think about what technique should I learn or should I use at that time. So, that's, but the biggest problem what I have is like in terms of self-defense that people do not realize that they need self-defense unless they've been in a situation. So that is my biggest concern with self-defense. Forget about the techniques, forget about what they should be learning, what they shouldn't be learning. It's just at least in India, India is not a very safe place. It is a dangerous place, especially for women. You guys might have heard a lot of cases about things happening to women in India. So, it's not the safest place. But then women, even in the areas which are supposed to be dangerous, they themselves are not very concerned about it because they have never been in that situation. But then when the situation comes, it's already too late, right? Now, if you're getting attacked, you're not going to go and learn now. There's no point of it. So that urgency is just not there. I've taken a lot of self-defense for companies and corporates and all. But then, what they give me is like they give me about an hour and a half to train them. And in an hour and a half, how can you learn how to fight? It's been It's been a very big struggle of mine to make people understand that one session or even 10 sessions or even a month or 2 months is just not enough to learn self-defense. You're not going to learn anything in that.
Absolutely.
So
and again, sorry. Just to add to that, what you're saying, you can't learn, again, self-defense. It's like you can go to a karate school or you can go to a Aikido school. And again, nothing against these arts because they're amazing art forms. But if you want to learn how to fight, to go to a boxing gym, an MMA gym or a Jiu-Jitsu gym, because you will learn how to fight. And for me, that is true self-defense. If like somebody said to me, I was chatting to a friend and he says, I do boxing. I said, oh, okay, where are you doing it? He says, it's a boxercise class. At this, I said, no, that's not boxing, bro. That's fitness. No, we're doing boxing techniques. No, bro, that's not boxing. It's a fitness class. I said, do you get punched in the face? No way, man. I'm like, well, you're not boxing then, bro. You know what I mean? So it's cool. Do your fitness, but don't call it boxing, man. Because this is what gives people that false sense of security. They think they're doing this exercise or karate or taekwondo or, again, you know, these non-contact sports, and then they go with their egos, which is everyone's problem sometimes, is their egos get the better of them. They do kind of systems and they end up coming up short. You know, so again, it goes back to my whole thing of, you know, you don't do self-defense unless you are fighting. It's as simple as that. You know, people say, oh, better to have something than nothing. But then why have something if you're not going to be able to use it? So I can teach you all the techniques in the world. Fantastic. You know, great. Look beautiful. Look fantastic. I'm going to punch you in your mouth now. How do you feel after that? Are you going to carry on with them techniques? I don't think so. You know, so unless you, it's like what they say when you're doing boxing. When you start boxing, you're not thinking about hitting that person. You're thinking about getting hit. And that's what you're worrying about more than anything. Once you've got past that, then you start learning how to box, because then you're thinking, oh, what can I do here? What can I do there? Do you not think, Nathan? I mean, what's your view on that?
Definitely, I agree with that. That's actually a beautiful part about, you know, full contact sports, which are very limited right now. I think MMA, Jiu-Jitsu, boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, Judo maybe. So, you know, these are probably the only sports which are full contact anymore. Other sports, pretty much all other sports, especially traditional martial arts, are limited because of the Olympic rule set. So they have become very sport related, right? It's not self-defense at all in that. Like again, karate or taekwondo, they were good once upon a time, but right now because of the sport rule set, they are very, very limited. But then again, you know, at least in India, kids, for example, hardly learn jiu-jitsu or boxing or kickboxing, Muay Thai, like hardly ever. I think, Professor, you started off the kids program with Vicky sir also, and that is very, very rare. Like I don't have any kids training jiu-jitsu in my academy. I have had maybe a couple of kids training jiu-jitsu, so you know that that kind of it's different. You know, still people don't know what is real, what is not. For most people, karate will still be real. They don't realize that it doesn't teach you how to fight. But that's what the media portrays. That's what movies portray. So it must be good enough for most people. But we know the reality being in the sport.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Yeah,
Professor, what is your view on that? What is your whole view on that, Professor? I'd like to hear your take on that, to be fair.
Yeah, before just let me recap, because I love this quote from Mike Tyson, what Nathan said. Everybody has a plan till they get a punch on the face.
Yeah, you get punched in the face.
Exactly.
That's what I said at the beginning, man. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Everyone's got a plan until you get a punch in the mouth. That's what we say to everyone that comes in a boxing gym, man. That's them quotes.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, the perfect symbolism is that how many BJJ world champions or great athletes we see in MMA who don't training striking properly, and then their career in MMA become very quickly, very fast, like 3 fights, and then they retired from MMA because they are not prepared to receive a punch on the face, right? And to be honest, I said that with my personal experience, because on my last MMA fight, I had 10 MMA pro fights. On my last fight, I was broken on my face. I want to put 16 screws on my face. So I know what I'm talking about, right? So
just a little bit, man.
Yeah. The guys, okay, I'm a BJJ world champion in black belt, brown belt, whatever. But I practice and go to MMA fight like on the beginning, like 1993 with Rice Gracie, when the guy just represent one martial art. everybody who's a professional fighter nowadays, they know at least the minimum requirements about BJJ, how to defend themselves properly, how to avoid some technique properly. So if you come from BJJ background, you should do the same thing on the opposite direction. You should know how to punch, how to escape, how to fake, how to kick, all these things, right? Uh, uh, of course, if you have this in your gym already, it's easier. But if you're a pure BJJ academy and you want to become MMA pro fighter, please go ahead. Don't stay in your comfort zone, right? That's the secret to failure.
Listen, there's a famous saying: "There's no growth in comfort." I learned that from Jeff Thompson, a guy that I went and did a seminar with a long, long time ago. And he's a guy over here. He's quite well renowned. He was a doorman. But yeah, that was a saying that he put in my head. There's no growth in comfort. You know, you need to be uncomfortable to grow.
Yeah.
And this is why I love jiu-jitsu so much, because I feel so uncomfortable every time I go on the mat. You know, but it's a good uncomfortable. It's an uncomfortable that I know I'm progressing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, we should feel comfortable in the uncomfortable situation, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Guys, if you don't mind, I want to turn a little bit our topics here, because many of guys are complaining on direct message, said, you just talking about BJJ, you just talking about fighting, you don't talk too much or at minimum about coffee. So in my mind, our countries are good in coffee, right? We had a lot of coffee shops over any country. Which kind of relationship you have with the coffee, guys?
I'm a coffee addict, man. Yeah, I'm a coffee addict. I can't. I have mine. I have one of those little things that you put on the hob, and you have to fill it with the coffee and the ground coffee. And yeah, that's me, man. I can't. I don't drink tea. I don't have it with sugar or milk. It's just black, and the stronger the better for me, man.
I like my
Blacker the
traditional
berry,
Indian,
fruit.
South Indian coffee. I don't know if Professor, if you had that. So you know, it's it's got a bit of sugar, more than a bit of sugar and milk, and it's very traditional. But yeah, that's something that keeps me up. So I don't mind a bit of good black coffee once in a while, but you know, tradition is tradition.
Right.
I hear that, man.
Yeah.
I want some of that good Brazilian coffee, Professor.
Yeah, here we have really good coffees here, especially in the south and southeast, because the plantations are so good here. We have like since the 18th century, I guess, and this kind of industry became huge here, right? As soon as we can return to meet each other and international flights go around, we can plan some meetings in person, and I will bring Brazilian coffee to you guys for sure.
Perfect.
Yeah,
You guys should come
nice.
over to India. Like
lovely.
near my city, we have like a lot of coffee plantations, and also to try some nice Indian coffee also.
That would be nice, man. It's quite amazing, you know, when they say the world is a small place. It truly is now, isn't it? You know, it truly is a small place, man. In terms of, you know, how we can interact with each other. You know, we're on 3 different continents, and we're able to talk and say, right, we'll, you know, when things are normal, we can see each other, and it's easily done. You know, it's easily done.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not addicted to coffee like you, Dave, but I just took 2 of these cups per day, like 750 milliliters.
That's a lot,
Do
Professor.
you know
That's
what?
a lot.
Do you know what, Professor? To be honest, I would probably do 3 or 4 of them a day.
Wow.
Whoa!
You know?
I'm an amateur over here right now.
Yeah, he's a black belt
Yeah,
on coffee
listen.
addiction.
Honestly, I'm black belt 2-stripe, Professor. No one's messing with me, man.
Oh my goodness.
So
I
I guess
want to
that's
I
Dave's
think what it was,
pre-workout, huh?
I want to
do you
increase
know what? I think
my
what it
daily
was,
taking to become close to him.
I used to work for an Italian company, right? And they, all of the places that we went to were Italian. So we used to deliver wine to all these Italians. So every place we went into, we had Italian coffee, dark, black, Italian, strong coffee. So I think over the years, you know, I got so used to it and so accustomed to it that now that's how I have it. And I can drink so much of it. I know it's not good for me, but I counteract that with my training and it's my
I think coffee is also like a common thing, right? Like I think it's there in every culture. People everywhere like it. It's just a very common thing to bond over as well.
Do you know what? It's really strange, right? Because in this country, right, years ago, coffee wasn't even like thought of. It was all tea houses. So a coffee shop. So it was all tea and fancy tea and tea this and very British. And you know, and then the coffee shops came in. Think is coffee. Nobody drinks tea unless you're at home. If you go, you don't go into a coffee shop and say, "Can I have tea?" What? What's that?
Yeah, it's very weird, right? Also here in Brazil, we have this coffee culture, of course, but nowadays some places, exactly the same places, when the coffee is huge, like I said, we start to grow this tea culture as well, because I don't know if you know about the Brazilian weather, but on the south and extremely south, it's cold on winter. So on these areas, they start to talking and start to build some tea culture. Also because it's a business thing, right?
So what
Yeah,
you're
I think
saying
that
that so down south it's more tea is and elsewhere it's more coffee, yeah?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Guys, let's get back to our path. I guess now the guys has no complaints on our social media. Uh, Let me know how
So
you how you guys as a businessman, how you dealing, of course, before COVID started, how you dealing as a businessman and the athlete and your physical activities stuffs.
what when I was running my class, when I was running my academy, Professor, is that what you're saying? How did I manage the two with my training and everything? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, basically, if I'm being brutally honest, my training went out the window because it was full-time writing class, you know, setting out classrooms, making sure that the business was running right. And if I wasn't, I was doing, you know, making sure that the merchandise was on time, making sure the merchandise was right, making sure that the flyers were good, making sure that people understood where we were. You know, so to be honest with you, it was shit in terms of training. My training just went wayward. The business went all right. The business, you know, was doing well because I was putting so much time into the business. But then there's a double-edged sword because I'm putting all my time into the business and I'm supposed to be teaching in the evening time, but I'm not 100% up to scratch with what I should be because I'm not practicing. So it's like I'm trying to run a business and trying to be the face of this business, But at the same time, you know, I'm losing my productivity, if that makes sense, because I'm trying to run the business. So it's really difficult, man. Really.
Yeah, I know what Dave is talking about. It was the same exact situation with me as well. I think that's what, at least I don't know if it's there everywhere, but at least, here again, uh, my training took a big backseat when I started handling the business full time. Initially, when I started my academy, I had to have a couple more jobs, so that I can keep paying the rent because there were hardly any students. So once students started coming in and I could focus completely on the academy, we had a good bunch of students. We had enough to pay the rent plus get some salary and all from the students. But then it was really hard because most of the time we still have to promote the gym, we still have to market it, we still have to make sure the gym is running well, we
Yeah.
still have to get the students, take classes. It was very hard. And then the biggest thing that took the backseat is jiu-jitsu. I used to always manage to get some time for it, at least half an hour, just get a few drills done, get a little bit of sparring, just at least a couple of rounds of sparring. But the biggest thing that took a backseat for me was my strength and conditioning. I just couldn't take time out to do any kind of strength and conditioning. So those few years in between in my business, yeah, that was bad for me physically because as important as jiu-jitsu and sport training is, strength and conditioning is also important. Because in the higher levels, I think Professor, you'll know much better. Two guys at equal skill level, the guy who's conditioned better is gonna do better. They're gonna fight better. And in terms of reflexes, again, strength and conditioning is super important. So that is something that really took a backseat. And in terms of jiu-jitsu, again, like I mentioned earlier, I never had a professor who to guide me. So just making a weekly and monthly plan used to take a lot of time. What to my beginners, my advanced guys, my fighters, what to teach them, how to plan it out. That used to take a lot of time for me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think as well, it's like when you. Sorry, Professor.
Yeah, just I completely agree with you guys because fight sports is not good for if you want to be a businessman and a fighter as well. You should sacrifice something, right? And of course, we need to bring food on the table, right? So we should choose the business part, and then when the things going uh, like not perfect but okay, then we can pay attention in the other part. But then COVID comes and make a mess on our lives.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
So that's what actually I
Yeah,
wanted to
definitely.
say something in terms of the business itself. For me, one of the biggest, very common thing was like people used to always ask me when I was running my academy full time as well, which was pretty much the last 6, 7 years. So people always ask me, if I have another job, if I'm working somewhere, uh, I didn't know what to reply. I was like, no, this is my full time thing. This is what I do. I teach, I coach. But it's hard for some people to imagine that this is all you do. You don't go to office. You don't sit in front of a laptop and work. So it still is. Even today, there's a little bit of a doubt in people's head that, this guy just does this. He's just a coach. That's it. So that was something that I have still faced. And this is not something that makes a lot of money, to be honest, at least not in India. You can't really be, you won't be a millionaire or something like that coaching jiu-jitsu and MMA, but it is something uh, related to passion. So I feel like, when there's passion
Yeah.
in what you do, then the finances and money part kind of go in a different direction. So you can either chase passion or kind of chase money. I don't think we can chase both at the same time.
No, you can't, man. You're definitely not. Definitely not. I mean, that is the thing. If it's your passion, you're doing it because you love it. But you know, there does come a point where you can't, you know, the finances have to play a part. You know, but yeah, I always found that, I think, you know, you can't, like you said, Professor, you can't really run a business and be an athlete at the same time. You know, it's very difficult unless you're have a huge jiu-jitsu school, and you know, you've got hundreds of students where you can basically let the business run itself, and you can go and roll on the mat every day, probably, which what you was doing, Professor, before COVID lockdown, right? On the mat every day.
I'm trying hard, but money not games, by the way.
Yeah.
Guys, we are going to the end of our episode. Can you guys give to us your thoughts and your goals to 2020? I guess it's survive, right? And then 2021.
Me, just personal progression, really. You know, like I say, I'm touching nearer to 50 now, so I just want to mentally, physically be in the best place that I can be, to be honest with you. I'm not looking to open up any schools ever again. I just want to be a student now. That's my goal. COVID's taught me a lot of lessons in terms of, you know, you put so much time and effort into something, and it can be whooped away from you in a heartbeat. Now, like yourself, Nathan, and like yourself, Professor, you've probably got to do a lot of building now to get things back to where they were originally. But for me, that's just showing me, you know, I forever want to just be a student. And that's it, man. You know, just progression, self-progression, and nothing can really throw me off track then. Anyway, I'm rabbiting. Nathan, go on, man, because we're running out.
Okay. So for me, my academy is a priority right now. You know, I just want to get it back on track. That might still take some time. And then this year was actually, I think Dave's dog is.
Like, sorry, man.
No issues. Not. I think all of us are dog lovers here, so no issues. So yeah, so this year was actually a year in which I wanted to come back into competition. So I really wanted to focus on my training, but that's down the drain. So hopefully next year, I want to get back into competition personally as well as keep developing my fighters. And one of the biggest goals which I had is like expanding my knowledge, like what Dave said, you know, I just want to learn from everyone, everywhere. Last few years, due to a lot of personal issues and issues with my academy and few issues with my partnership and all, I couldn't really learn much. So this year, I really want to learn from everyone. I want to host people. I want to host Professor. I really hope next year, hopefully, if everything is fine, you'll come over. And Dave, you're always welcome. I would love to learn from you. So, you know, that's one of my biggest goals. I just want to learn. And of course, I want to compete.
Same,
so
man. Same.
Personally, that's my target.
Oh, thanks, Nathan.
Man.
I'm really want these things get under control because I love to practice BJJ, of course, but I also love to travel and spread the message, you know, because when I was white belt, blue belt, my dream is that one. Okay, I want to bring BJJ when I became capable to do it to many people as much as I can, you know. So this thing you said really made my day, bro, because we are on tough times. But my goal is still that. I still spread the message, spread the BJJ techniques, and of course, take some coffee. Why not?
For sure.
Hey, you can't go nowhere without the coffee, man. It's brilliant.
So
anyway, guys, listen, I just want to say thank you for taking the time, Professor Nathan. Professor, thank you for putting on. It's an honor, man, to be here and to be part of your little history, you know, especially the podcast history. Nathan, it's brilliant to see you in the flesh after following you for so long, my brother. Yeah, and hopefully we do this again sometime, man.
Yeah,
It was
definitely.
just brilliant. It was brilliant being here, talking with both of you. Professor, such an honor talking to you finally. And like I said, just looking forward to seeing you in person soon. And Dave, I really appreciate all the things you're doing, and I just want to know you even more now.
Thank you,
Guys,
man. Likewise, my brother.
today I had this honor to receive these two guys here. They are really amazing. Of course, we want to do the more episodes later. And please, guys, take your comments below. Also, I'll bring you here on the description all their social media and links. Stay tuned with the Jiu-Jitsu Cafe podcast, your BJJ and Fights weekly podcast. Okay, thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Nathan.
Oh, see you then.